Cool. So I think we're probably ready to start. And then if people come in, we'll just keep going. Hi, so welcome to our session on fundraising for crisis with Facebook challenges. And we're going to be jumping in with the Australian Red Cross on how they cracked Facebook fundraising with a virtual dog walk. I'm going to be active in the chat during it, and there's also a Q&A section. But if you also have questions, maybe it's best to put them straight in the Q&A and we'll refer to them at the end of the session. Perfect. So an introduction to our session. So we're going to be focusing on a peer-to-peer virtual challenge event. And generally, there's been this feeling that this type of events are often suited more to select causes, very big health charities, for example. But we've seen some recent great success from the Australian Red Cross, which we're going to be focusing on, but also from US for UNHCR, which shows that Facebook challenges can work for a variety of causes. So in this session, I'm going to be taking you through how the Facebook challenge model helped these organizations break into virtual peer-to-peer, what they did to adapt the Facebook challenge model, and what they did that worked to help them raise over 100,000. Perfect. So quick introduction. So I'm Danny Adams. So I head up the strategy and development for GivePanel Australia. I'm based in Sydney, and GivePanel is a platform, but also a support team that allows charities to better manage, communicate with, retain, and grow Facebook fundraisers. And we work with over 400 nonprofits in over 15 countries. So I'll hand on to my lovely panelists.
Cool. I'm Megan, and I'm a consultant at More Strategic, and I work alongside Karen Armstrong, which I'm sure some of you know, and we're a fundraising and marketing consultant agency, and we have worked with over 13 charities, I think now, to launch their first kind of Facebook challenge. And so, yeah, we've had quite a bit of experience in the last year and really excited to kind of share what we've been able to achieve with Red Cross today. So hand over to you, Ash.
Hi everyone, my name is Ash. I work at Australian Red Cross, and I've been part of the fundraising team for 7 years, and I manage our community fundraising portfolio. So thanks for having me today.
Great. So I thought we'd start off with a quick introduction to what a Facebook challenge is. I'm sure many of you know already, but this is useful for those who are new to the section. So there we go. So Facebook Challenge is essentially a virtual event that's managed via Facebook. People are recruited via Facebook ads, and they undertake the challenge in their own time. And they raise money for this via Facebook fundraiser. So I'm sure you've seen those where people set up a fundraiser on Facebook and you donate directly through Facebook to that charity. So we've seen challenges in everything from squats to knitting to dog walking, which is what we're going to talk about today. And some of the advantages are that it means lower acquisition costs. It's very cheap to recruit these fundraisers, more fundraisers than, say, an in-person event, because you can target them all around the country, and also new audiences. So at the moment, 80% of challenge participants are brand new to a charity. We recommend the activity usually takes place for a month. So a month worth of like 5Ks a day, or to complete 100K a day if you're doing a running challenge over that month. And we then say that should be a month's worth of acquisition via Facebook ads in the previous month. So the Facebook challenge funnel. So essentially, this is the funnel that we recommend and what the Red Cross did. So you start with a Facebook ad, which then goes to a Facebook lead form. It's a very simple one-click data capture form, and that knocks them straight into the Facebook group. And within the Facebook group, they're then asked to register and set up a fundraiser for the event. To help them register, what we do is we encourage the use of incentives. So anything from a t-shirt to a bucket hat are super popular, or one charity is doing beanies at the moment. You promote that within the group and you ask people to fill out the data capture form so we can send them the incentive. At the end of the data capture form, it knocks them straight into setting up their fundraiser. And then those fundraisers are stewarded via GivePanel, via messaging and email tools. So you'll notice that in the funnel, there is the Facebook group, which is a central part, and that's something we're going to be talking about today. So Facebook groups really are a main part of the funnel, and we tested this model without it, and they don't work very well. So what's great about Facebook group is it really is an easy way to encourage and support your challenge fundraisers throughout that month they're doing the challenge. We know it has high engagement rates because people are used to checking Facebook several times a day. And it's also very easy to moderate. So if someone asks a question in the Facebook group, you can just reply to them and everyone sees it. And also the main thing we wanted to highlight there is that this is really your chance to build a strong and often direct relationship with future supporters. So that's one of the things that we really think is key, is how you moderate and communicate within that Facebook group. So a little highlight from Facebook challenges in Australia. So on average, it costs $18 per ad spend to recruit an active fundraiser, and they raise on average $200. For some, it's much higher. The top 5 Facebook challenges this year from Give Panel customers have raised over $250,000. But one of the biggest questions we get asked is, what about the data? So how do I get the data from those Facebook fundraisers? So that's where something like Give Panel comes in. So essentially we sync with Facebook and we display the data for you of the fundraisers. So you can see exactly who raised which amount of money, which event they raised it for. And then you have the communication tools such as messaging and also email to steward them, but also gain further data capture, which you can give you a complete record to export to your CRM. So with that, I'll then jump straight into the Australian case study and pass over.
Thank you, Danny. Megan will speak next in a bit more detail as to how we arrived at our idea. But essentially, the challenge we decided to pilot with was walk 100 kilometres with your dog in June and raise funds for Red Cross. Our target audience was very broad. We obviously did audience targeting through Facebook. It was looking at 18 plus nationwide, male and female, with an overlay interest in dogs and charity. And the incentive that we used for this challenge was also, as you can see in this picture, a bandana that you could have your dog sport in the month of June. Now, some insights we already knew from Facebook challenges from the research and success in the UK included focusing on an activity. So it's either like quantifiable goal that's either per day or over the month. So we decided to go with over the month angle for this challenge. And the connection to cause appears to be largely irrelevant or secondary at the start of acquisition. It's something that you build on within the engagement journey. And as we know, the Facebook algorithm, why these perform so well, it obviously promotes, the algorithm of Facebook promotes Facebook fundraisers to users. So that's why we saw such a low cost per acquisition for this campaign. And I'll pass over to Megan.
Cool, thanks Ash. So we partnered with Red Cross to do their first pilot, and what we tend to do is we kick off with a getting started workshop, and in that workshop is when we do a bit of concept development just to kind of arrive at the challenge that we choose. And so we'd known that the Facebook challenge model was absolutely hitting it out of the park for kind of big health charities, and we'd seen great success in the UK and also in Australia. What we weren't so sure of is how an NGO like the Australian Red Cross would perform. And I think one of our biggest concerns was just around that average funds raised, because we know typically NGOs have a lower average funds raised. I think, Danny, you said before, the average is sitting around $200, but we actually went into this a bit more conservative and we're saying to Red Cross, look, we'll put the benchmark at 150, but we'll try and design a concept and a challenge, kind of everything that goes with it, that we can try and get it as high as 200 as we can. So we knew that a more difficult challenge kind of gets higher average funds raised and also gets people to activate at a higher rate. So this is kind of the typical things you see with like a cycle or a swim challenge. You get less people in the door, but on average they're raising more money, which is great. But we weren't so keen to kind of go super left of field and do something like a cycle or a swim, as we knew that had a bit of a barrier to entry. So we knew we wanted to keep it in the kind of realm of stuff that worked. And that was like runs, walks, squats, sit-ups. So we definitely knew it needed to be hard. And so as Ash mentioned before, Facebook challenges are typically you do something in a day over a month, or you do something and you've got a big target like 100 kilometers. So we even found that by positioning it as 100 kilometers in June, it seemed a bit more challenging than if we were to do something like walk 2 kilometers a day with your dog. And so when we were choosing this, we had to think about how the fundraiser would feel. So making sure that the fundraiser would actually feel worthy of sharing their fundraiser to their family and friends, and kind of like, I'm doing something, I'm committed and I'm proud. And we also had to think about the donor. So when they would see it on Facebook, how would they feel? Would they be tempted to donate? Does it seem like something challenging enough? And kind of, would I give Ash that $20 to walk with her dog? So we thought that 100 kilometers a dog walk in June kind of hit those two kind of areas. We also knew that acquisition results had been pretty consistent between kind of all charities and then also concepts as well. So we weren't too worried about that, because we get some questions around, if it's challenging, will you get less people through the door? But we had nothing to kind of support that. And then the last one was that we kind of were putting up this idea of the dog walk challenge, but we were like, okay, Red Cross doesn't actually have anything to do with dogs. Is that a bit of a concern? But we had lots of data from the UK to suggest that dog walks were doing really well. So they had 4 out of the top 40 challenges last year were dog walks. And I think one was, and I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before, but a dementia charity did a dog walk and they raised over £2 million. So we kind of thought dogs is something new. No one's tested it in Australia before. And then I think getting that to kind of have synergy with the cause is what Ash will now take you through now. So yeah, over to you, Ash.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, we knew, we were attracting the right people. People were coming into the group, but it was really, really important for us to drive that alignment with the cause, to lift conversion to activate, as well as our average gift. So we did this by drawing on why people own dogs. You know, a lot of people own dogs. A dog is the man's best friend, a companion. So we spoke to particular programs that related to that theme of companionship, highlighting our work in social connectedness, such as our programs of Teleyarn and Telecross, where we call isolated people with a daily phone call every day just to check in and make sure they're okay. Our community visitors scheme program, as well as other family support programs. Our tone of voice throughout the supporters' engagement journey was strong and cohesive. It was conversational and upbeat, and we had a lot of fun with it too. So we were referencing their pooches as their furry pal, emphasising that they're pawsome for getting involved and making a difference. And yeah, we believe this contributed to the success of the campaign.
Cool. So we knew we had the right concept and we kind of had the right key messages and kind of connection to the cause. So now we had to make sure that we got the ad content right. So these here are kind of our 3 key pillars that we ran with Red Cross. So we did the ads for them. So you've got the challenge focus, which is kind of short copy all around completing the challenge, getting that kind of welcome pack. And you can see here it was a staff member literally just taking a selfie out with their dog. We then had an incentive focus ad, which is short copy again and all about what you're going to receive when you get into the group. And then the last one was a cause focus ad. So you can see here we've got a split image of someone with their dog and then also with a Red Cross staff member putting a blanket over someone. And the copy was a bit longer and we started to introduce kind of the themes of companionship and also kind of where the money was going. So you can see that the challenge focus ad here, it drove the largest volume of leads. So this was kind of the ad that worked the hardest for us. The incentive focus ad drove the lowest cost per lead. So I think this was well under $2, but it kind of came with a bit of warning. So when we did our end-to-end analysis, we could see that whilst you were getting a really low cost per lead, these people were actually activating to fundraise the worst. So it's kind of use it in moderation and have a balance of the other ads. And so the last ad was something we kind of introduced a bit later in the campaign, and we found at the end of the campaign that it actually drove a really low cost per active fundraiser. So cost per active fundraiser is when you look at your total ad spend and then you're able to link your ad based on like a person, so you can actually go and see if they activated to fundraise, and that's where we got that cost from. So I think it's really important to understand you need to have a good mix, and you also need to just think about how you're kind of packaging your key messages together and kind of getting the right recipe for your charity and your concept as well. So that's where we ended up.
I know resourcing can be a huge difficulty and problem for a lot of charities. It's a common theme. So I just thought it's worth talking through a bit of how we managed this campaign internally. We obviously worked in partnership with More Strategic, who are amazing to work with. We knew we were going into this challenge with limited resources. We could only mainly being the time of year that this was falling. So it was May, June that this was in market, which obviously a focus for us internally is the tax campaign. So More Strategic helped us to keep on track with regular whips, and we relied on their expertise in this space to help optimize the acquisition ads that we had in market to ensure that we were attracting the right people to the group. In terms of hosting the Facebook group, there were 2 people internally that were the moderators. So we were monitoring all participant kind of content that was coming in and managing Red Cross's role within that group. So posting on everyone's post to say, thanks for sharing, welcome to the group. That played a very big part in this challenge. We also recruited 5 passionate Red Cross staff members that we knew had dogs to play the role of community ambassadors. So these staff members are known for their dogs. Some of them bring them into the office each day. So we relied on them to generate content within the group and help to drive engagement. They were also commenting, liking on posts. In terms of kit distribution, I know a lot of charities do this internally, but just due to our resourcing, we decided to take that external for this challenge. And we had our customer care team that was also briefed on the campaign and able to handle any questions that came through, whether that was from Facebook, response to email, or even phone call. In terms of the themes and of the content that we saw coming through the group, there were quite a different themes that were covered. There was the theme of celebration, so sharing achievements such as hitting their fundraising targets, reaching halfway mark, celebrating birthdays in some instances. And then I guess the beauty of the bandana was there was some great modelling across a lot of the content that we saw with, you know, a lot of people sharing their pooches out on their walks, wearing the bandana. We also saw, you know, obviously everyone was conversing and virtually online, but there was the opportunity and the instance where that did become real life. We found that people were reaching out and using this community to connect and, you know, reach out to see if anyone was in their local area to join together and walk. We also loved showcasing individual fundraisers and what they were up to through the month of June. So we did a paparazzi weekly post where we highlighted particular fundraisers and their achievements throughout this journey. As you can see here, we did a lot of cause-related posts. Again, as I touched on before, this was very much linked to our work in social connectedness. We found the posts that were quite authentic and user kind of generated, like the selfie here on the right with Hugh, did really well with engagement. And, you know, we made sure that we celebrated achievements as well. So when we hit certain milestones with fundraising, also counting down the weeks within the challenge, it was very important to generate that kind of buzz within the group. And lastly, another strong theme that came through was storytelling. So people love to describe what they were doing, where they were going, what the weather was like, telling us about how many kilometres they covered during their walk. You know, we heard about stories of people dropping off their kids to school in the morning, visiting historical sites that they stumbled across during their clocking some kilometres, crossing bridges to islands, you name it. A lot of storytelling was covered in this group, but it was great. And yeah, it really drove great engagement throughout the group.
Cool. And so the group was definitely like the heart and soul of this challenge. As you could see there, the content was just amazing and lots of dogs. And who doesn't love dogs? But we also found that multi-channel engagement was also really important. So we worked with Red Cross to build their onboarding and event journey. And we used this as an opportunity to introduce the cause and really motivate participants to fundraise. So this is where we started introducing some of like the companionship themes and the programs where this money would go and support. And we really made sure that all of the emails had like a clear call to action. So that was either to start your fundraiser and create it, or to go back and drive people to their fundraisers themselves. So it was really important that we were constantly kind of reminding people of where their money would go and motivating them throughout the challenge. And we actually found that we had super, super high engagement with Red Cross in this challenge in terms of like open rates and click rates. So that was great to see that people were kind of engaging and absorbing the content, but it also reinforced that we didn't kind of acquire the right people. So we know that when people are kind of engaging with email, that they're going to go and then be a higher active fundraiser for you. So that was kind of something that we tracked throughout the campaign just to make sure we were on track as well. So there's definitely really important in terms of multi-channel and what you can layer in on top of that Facebook group.
And on to the results. So we saw a really great cost per lead of just over $2, acquiring just over 3,000 Facebook leads. Those that actually went on to join the Facebook group was just over 2,000 members in total, and we had 1,300 of those register for the dog walk. So that was registered to receive the bandana. From that, we had 907 go on to create their fundraising page, and 75% of them activated, so ended up raising money for us. So that was 682 active fundraisers. So bringing that cost per acquisition to $9.50. The average raised was 230, so it exceeded our target, which was great. And total income was just over 160,000 for the campaign. So really strong ROI for a pilot. I think the learning for us was we wish we went harder because it was a really small test to start with. So yeah, definitely a lot of potential and something we'll probably look to run again same time next year.
So you only spent, it was only like 5,000 originally budgeted for your ads,
yeah,
right?
5,000, and then we ended up putting an extra 1.5K towards it in the last week of acquisition because it was performing so well. Yeah. And just some learnings that we found along the way. So real life content definitely worked best. That was even, I mean, from the get-go with acquisition all the way through to just the content that we generated. So all selfies, everything unbranded, just very authentic kind of content seemed to be key. Being reactive in the group with content worked really well for us as well. So we did have, I guess, a content calendar in place with a few scheduled posts. However, we found that it was really important to kind of talk to what I guess people were kind of discussing within the group. So we had flexibility in what we were posting, and yeah, just made sure that it was relevant to what people were talking about. Establishing a connection to your cause is key. So make sure you weave that content in and that it's relatable. You're connecting with people as well in a way that you've never connected before. For us, it really was worth spending the time moderating and responding to people's posts, welcoming them in the group, even writing on their individual fundraising pages to show that you care and that, yeah, you appreciate them putting the time and effort into the challenge. Incentive, we found that worked really well in obviously driving conversion. We did a post-campaign survey as well around like motivations for joining. People were interested in a challenge that involved a dog, and they were also really interested in raising funds for Red Cross and thought it was a good way to keep fit. So they were all really good insights for us and reasons as to why to pilot another Facebook challenge. Improvements for next time. We had a lot of feedback in that survey as well around sharing an app to help track walks and potentially looking at a how-to fundraising guide that we can use across Facebook challenges. So a lot of the common themes and problems we saw were people not being able to find their fundraising page again, unsure how to share it or invite people to their page. So really pulling together a simple how-to guide. And still for us to confirm is how much impact did dogs have on the challenge? So what's next? We did use this kind of as an opportunity for a cross-sell and collaboration with other areas of Red Cross. So as part of our first aid product, we do pet first aid. So we did weave some of that content through the Facebook group, giving discounts to the pet first aid course. As we speak, we are currently doing regular giving conversion for those that did go on to fundraise. It is early days, however, that's performing quite well and above our benchmark at about 5% at the moment. In terms of what's on the table next, we have a wildcard challenge that we've just gone live with about 2 weeks ago, which I'll touch on next. And we're looking to do a cause-related challenge in the back end of the year. So this is the wildcard challenge that we have in market right now. So keep a lookout. It is Big Cake Bake. This is a campaign we have run for about 10 years, but we really wanted to see how it would work in a Facebook kind of realm. So the official event date is on the 31st of August. We are using an incentive for this one too. It's an oven mitt that you receive for free in your event kit when you register. So yeah, keep a lookout. We're in market. I think you're on mute, Danny. Sorry. Danny, can you hear me? Oh.
Sorry, I'm muted.
Yeah, that's okay.
Hopefully you can hear me okay now.
We can.
Perfect. So thanks so much for taking us through the case study. So I thought we're just going to jump through around how making Facebook challenges work for your cause and some other examples of how different charities have adapted the model slightly. So to start with, we've got a case study from US for UNHCR. So they did a steps challenge. So it's their 300,000 steps in 30 days. And they launched this straight after the Ukrainian invasion, so the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So the reason it doesn't have a month-long timetable is because they wanted to launch this straight away. And another big adaptation they did is because it has such a large emotional pool, is that they really focused on getting people to set up a fundraiser as their first step. And instead of an incentive registration, you got an incentive at the end of the challenge. So people could sign up and start it straight away. That isn't something we'd always recommend, but we thought it was something that, because they have such a good emotional pool and people were obviously very concerned and upset by the invasion, that they were able to do that. This was quite a small group, so it only had 281 active fundraisers, but they raised over 81,000 US dollars, which is just around 112,000. So great income for them and an ROI of 4.9. And another one that I thought I'd highlight is WWF-UK. So they did a March challenge, which is UK springtime. So supporters can be outside, and they really wanted to do something around connecting to cause and nature, which is obviously their what they work on. So they did a challenge that was around walking outside, and they really brought in that connection to cause through their marketing, such as they had these quite sweet adverts that showed different animals doing a march. They had some great challenge champions, and they obviously doing this as a recurring theme, so they're bringing people in again to it, and they raised just over £200,000. I would caution with the UK challenges, they tend to be very large amounts of money, and that is partially because it's been active there for a lot longer, so people are quite good at like knowing what to do, they've got their systems in place, but also the population's a lot bigger, which obviously affects the amount of money and how big the groups can get. So where it all go wrong. So I'm just going to jump through before we go to the Q&A, some of the common pitfalls with running a Facebook challenge, which the Red Cross managed to expertly avoid. So one of them, and one people's concern, is around not attracting the right people. So you really want to attract the right people, but also repel the wrong ones. And this is an example from and so approximately with the Red Cross, they had 50% of those who registered for the event actively fundraise, which was really good. And so these are some of the tips that we have. So first of all, we say that the ad should always be challenge first, but test some with a secondary messaging. So like the Red Cross did, they brought out the group, but they also brought out the impact as well in some of their ads. We really advise that you judge your ad success by cost per active fundraiser and not just the cost per lead. So be wary of just looking at the cost per lead, because that only means something if you're getting good active fundraisers. We also advise be wary of people under 30 and also people on Instagram. So you may want to remove that as a placement. One of the reasons is that at the moment, these fundraisers very much happen on Facebook. So people coming from Instagram or slightly younger might not have a big Facebook connection, which means they're not able to raise as much. There is some work coming in that we're doing separate journey planning for Instagram, but at the moment it's not live. And then what we also recommend to avoid is sometimes be wary of targeting serial runners in a fitness audience. So they will generally give you very good lead volume. You get lots of people entering the group, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be there to fundraise. So as Megan says, you really want to strike that balance between getting people who can fundraise, but also getting that volume. Another course correction that we have is not monitoring and taking action to help hit those key benchmarks. That's something that the Red Cross did really well, is that they were always looking at their cost per active fundraiser, the percent of group to registration, the percent of group to fundraiser, and they were making course adaptations as they went, and they were doing it early enough. So these are some of the course corrections that we recommend. So we say within the group, it's great to test lots of different post types, so memes, polls, images, but to see what generates that high engagement and to kind of duplicate that. We also advise to plan for roughly 1/3 of posts being focused on a fundraising, but you may need to add in more. So if you've got low level of fundraising activation, you may need to rethink your content plan for the group and bring in more case studies or live stream with ambassadors. And that's something the Red Cross are really good at, in that they had an outline, but they were very flexible and they really changed it as they needed to. Another example is that sometimes you may have low percent of registration, and that might just be that you need to keep reminding people they've missed that registration link. You want to get people modeling your incentive and reminding people to sign up regularly, especially during those first couple of weeks of the acquisition. And another key thing we recommend is to don't let your fundraisers forget about their fundraiser pages. So as Ash said, people sometimes couldn't find their fundraiser page, or they forgot about it, they didn't know how to invite people. You really want to keep posting nice examples of how they can find their fundraiser page, and also content they can share on there, which will help their network know why they're raising money for this particular cause. So these are some example posts that we have. Another reason why I want people to post on their fundraisers regularly is every time they do that, it then puts the post back into their news feed. So their network is going to see the post, and therefore they can kind of get more donations that way. Great. So then our final thoughts before we move into the Q&A is, by activating Facebook giving tools, you can definitely tap into income and donor prospects that you're missing. So if you haven't already activated it, and even if you're not sure about doing a Facebook challenge, then we recommend going to sign up, and there's the link to sign up. Lots of charities find that as soon as they signed up, they start getting birthday fundraisers almost straight away. And through Give Panel, you can also steward these fundraisers and gain the details. During the challenge, we recommend to focus on a range of metrics and KPIs, but be prepared to make course corrections. So there is an adaptability that you need and flex with that. We also recommend that we're on hand to help you manage, steward, and communicate with your Facebook fundraisers. And you can follow us on LinkedIn, and you can also contact me directly if you have any questions. So with that, we'll jump into the Q&A. So you should all be able to see a little Q&A box, and we've got a couple here. So I'll just start reading out the questions, we can answer them. So the first one is, sounds like you have access to the fundraiser data. Do you also have access to the donor details? So this is, this is quite a really good question. So essentially, when someone donates to a fundraiser, they still do it via Facebook. So that all sits within Facebook. So it's up to Facebook about whether they allow the capture of those donor details. I think sometimes people do opt in to give their details, and you will find them in the Facebook transaction report, which would then carry over to Give Panel. However, we have done some testing around this, and we find that they're really not very good prospects, and that generally we would advise to focus on the fundraisers instead as your main area of stewardship. Would you agree, Megan? Have you got anything to add to that question?
No, not from mine. I would completely agree with you. We haven't really seen any success activating them. And yeah, it's not, pretty much what you said.
Yeah, great. So another question is, how did you manage participant privacy by them sharing their walks and therefore their locations and often their homes? I don't recall seeing any tips to manage it, be aware of their privacy online, but I could have missed it. Really great question. I mean, so there is a challenge playbook that Give Panel provides to all our customers, which takes you through step by step. And in there, we do have an FAQ, which advises on privacy, and that can be something that you can share as well with your participants. So there is advice on that. Is there anything to add, team, before I move to the next question? Okay.
No, I think all good. I know, I mean, for us, this was quite a new space in that we hadn't done a walk or, you know, anything like that before for Red Cross. But I know that a lot of the apps also have the capability, like Strava, for example, to switch like on like a privacy zone. So when people are out walking and things, it doesn't give away the location of where you start and end. So yeah, that is something that we have noted for learnings for next time to have in our how-to fundraising guides as well.
Perfect. What solutions do you use to manage the email journeys, and can this be done within GivePanel? We can do this within GivePanel. So we have a new feature which lets you email everyone who's registered, and you can separate the journey by those who have registered and set up a fundraiser, or those who have registered but haven't yet set up the fundraiser. So that can all be done within GivePanel. It's relatively new. So when this challenge happened, Megan, you did the emails in your own system, right?
Yeah, we set them up in Campaign Monitor. That was just because you kind of have a bit more flexibility in terms of setting up automations and kind of the design and functionality you do. However, it does mean we were manually loading data into the platform. So it kind of has its pros and cons. So definitely you can really easily set up kind of onboarding and triggers in GivePanel, but you might want to do something if you kind of like halfway there, or like first day of your challenge potentially in like another platform, so you can play around with like videos and GIFs and that kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely GivePanel, you can do it out of there, and then you can also do it out of your own platforms if you wanted.
Yeah, so that's all we tend to see, is especially the smaller charities or those with limited resources, you can do it straight out of GivePanel, and yeah, you can trigger based on a week after they registered, a week before the event starts, all of that. But then later you'll have to export them into your own email system for the follow-up journey. How many registrations did you expect, and did you have enough bandanas?
Yeah,
Were you
so
bang on target, or did you run out?
we were almost bang on target. We were, I think, only like less than 100 off. That's because we did increase our spend towards the end as well. We're obviously monitoring how we were going with bandana distribution. But we did have enough. We worked backwards, I guess, from the budget and our forecast of what we expected, what leads we expected. We did have a lot of people ask for 2 or 3 because they had 3 dogs, but we made it strictly 1 bandana per registrant.
Perfect. And we have a lot of data now to kind of be able to work backwards as well. So we can kind of pretty closely kind of understand, depending on the type of charity and the concept you're doing, kind of where you'll land in terms of that. So hopefully, because the last thing we want to do is have heaps of stock on hand that you can't use again. But I think it might be worth noting as well, one of our recommendations is always keeping that incentive quite generic, so that if you do miss the mark or the challenge doesn't hit it out of the park, you've got stock that you can use for your next challenge, and you don't just like have to throw them away. So there's definitely some things in mind to make sure that you can reuse the incentive and just to try and keep that cost down for you.
Perfect. So the next question is, I've heard I heard receiving the raised funds from Facebook is a lengthy wait. My understanding is that Facebook pays a little bit based on how much you earn. So if you aren't getting much money from Facebook fundraisers, they might have a little bit of delay. They might only pay you once a month, but in some of the big charities, they receive the income much quicker. So I don't know, Ash, do you know when you get your money from Facebook? Is it monthly now?
It is monthly, yeah. So it comes through PayPal, and it is at the moment monthly, and there is a little bit of a lag in that, you know, we're still waiting on the next transaction report that has income from June. So yeah.
There's a little bit of lag in terms of when they pay you, but what's good is that you'll still be able to see the income that they're going to pay you. So in GivePanel,
that's right.
So you will know how much you're going to get, but unfortunately, in terms of them sending over to you, it can be monthly. Next question. How do you manage people being responsible, aware of the safety of their pets in this challenge, e.g. walking old dog or very young dog? This came up in another charity running a similar FB challenge. I think I've seen it before where people have kind of the group self-moderated a little bit around that. So if people have walked puppies and other people have said, be careful with puppies, or they've asked advice. I don't know if you have any experience with that, Ash.
We didn't see too much around that within our group, though we did share a bit of resources around, I guess, pet health and things like that within our group. We had a couple of pre-existing blogs as part of our Pet First Aid product that we shared links to. So how to keep your pet safe and healthy. But I didn't see too much commentary within the group around that, the safety of their pets. No.
Perfect. I've just got a question in the chat, which I'll just refer back to quickly, which was how much did you spend on the overall on the campaign? So you spent 6.5 on your media spend, and do you know your per unit incentive costs or what they were roughly?
Oh, you're testing my memory now.
Or you can say the total if you know how much you paid for incentives.
I don't know off the top of my head. Sorry, I don't have the it open.
No worries.
But I guess if you look at, oh, sorry, Megan, you might.
No, I was going to say what we typically benchmark around like a t-shirt incentive is around like $16 to $18. And one of the reasons why we decided to do a bandana was it fit with pets, but also could keep the cost down. So I'm going to say it was around that $10 mark, but it might have been a little bit higher just because the bandana was actually really good quality. It was quite big as well. And the welcome
and
pack
also we paid externally for postage as well, distribution. So that would have upped that cost as well.
Yeah. So there is a slide in the deck when we send these out, which give you the actual ROI. So you kind of work backwards from that on the spend. And that also includes the agency costs and the give panel costs, which for a pilot is $2,245 for 4 months. Perfect. So would it matter how many followers you have for Facebook fundraising? Because you're going after new people, so it's like 80% new, sometimes 90% new for the charity. It doesn't really matter how many followers you have. I think it's probably more important is your cause and how you communicate it, and also having the resources. So don't be put off if you are small followers. Next question. Now that you have the one-step process for activating their Facebook fundraisers and getting merch, do you have updated stats around the percent of people who activate? Yes, this is a very good question. So when we did your challenge, that new form wasn't in place, was it? No. So we have a new form, which means essentially when you register, it says to complete your registration, now activate your fundraiser straight away, which means that we get a much higher percent of people setting up a fundraiser. So it only came in a week ago or 2 weeks ago. In the Give Panel playbook, for those who are a customer coming in, we have a downloadable resources, and one of them is a benchmarking document and also a calculator. And those will be updated based on the results that we have from those new forms. So we can definitely give that to you if you need it. And final question is, could you share who you use for fulfillment?
Sure. So we used PhilPack. We use them for quite a few of our other fundraising campaigns. So that's who we went with.
Perfect.
There's
so
one more in the chat, Danny.
Say that again.
I think there's one more question in the chat.
Oh yeah, there's one more. Have I got that one? I'll just click them all. I think we're all done. The other one was just a thank you, which is very nice. So if anyone's
just one in the comment in the actual chat.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Is that the one about how you
manage?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for picking that up. Do you want to go for it, Ash?
Yeah, sure. So the question for those that can't see is, how did you manage those who wanted to include their children but couldn't due to them not having Facebook accounts due to minimum age requirements? So a lot of the time we do for standard fundraising find that children do want to fundraise, and that's covered off in obviously our terms and conditions and things like that. However, in this scenario, it would simply be having the parent register the activity and hold the fundraising set up the actual fundraising page on behalf of their child. So almost registering as a family, I'd say, to complete the challenge. And we did see a lot of families doing it together. We saw a lot of people going out and walking with their partners, their children. So yeah, it was really nice from that perspective.
Yeah, that's really sweet. Perfect. So is there any more questions? If you 30 seconds to type furiously if you have any more. No, I think we are pretty much done then. So thank you for everyone who attended. We're going to be sending out the recording and also the deck. And yeah, you've got the contact details in there, and very happy to answer any questions that you may have. Perfect. So thanks so much, Megan and Ash, for joining and for doing that.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah.
No worries.
Thanks all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.